Floor now, and my colleague Erin Bates is in discussion with Deon George. Erin, let me throw the reins to you.
Thank you. I will grab them from you, Kholi, as you say, with Deon George, Federal Chair for Finance, or what is it? Federal Finance Chair. Semantics, really. But we've been discussing, just in the build-up to this conversation, financial training for incoming councillors of the DA. That's something you do as a party to try and ensure that people are not financially compromised. I want to dig into the party finances itself. How much is this conference costing the DA to run?
The conference will probably be in the region of between 8.5 million and 10 million rand.
And tell us who is backing it. Where is that money coming from?
Well, the DA does, obviously we do a lot of fundraising, and this would be coming from mostly donor income. We must also remember that the great benefit of having a Congress like this demonstrates that the DA is in fact democratic. It works well. We've demonstrated that. And also the amount of coverage that we get from all of the stations, that is money that, if you look at the cost of the Congress and what you'd have to pay if you were paying for advertising, for example, it's money very well spent. So we actually make quite a bit of a profit on that because of the coverage that we do get. So I think we're doing many things. Firstly, we're demonstrating that we are a viable and we are a robust organisation. We're on time. You see how slick we are. We get things done. And at the same time, we're reaching into the homes of everybody with the coverage we get. So people can see, well, what is the DA? What do they believe? How do they behave? So that's something that's great. We're coming into the homes of every South African.
Of course, the question is if any of that coverage actually translates into marks on ballots come 2024. In terms of your private donorship, you did disclose some 35 million rand in the last quarter of last year to the IEC in terms of the relevant legislation. You did so again for the first quarter of this year. That was a figure of some 16 million rand. Tell us, who are some of your private sector backers?
Well, the thing is, we do disclose, as you know, and that's on the records. The Political Party Funding Act has not been very successful in terms of making transparent, making donors transparent. The DA did not support the legislation, although we comply with it 100%. It is, however, very clear that other parties do not comply.
That isn't my question, though. My question is, who's backing you? Name some of your private funders.
Well, as you can see on the reports, the people that have been disclosed, those are people that have given us over 100,000, and then of course people that have given us above that, you'll see that, and then people cannot give more than 15 million. So yes. Yeah, they are disclosed, and those names are on the report.
The name escapes me, but the biggest donor toward that 16 odd million rand for the first quarter of this year is a company whose associate is also involved with Capitec. Now, we were talking about financial resolutions which have been tabled today already. One is around the mandate of the Reserve Bank. The DA very strongly supported the mandate remaining as is, being strictly monetary policy. Are you comfortable that your relationship with institutions like banks, like Capitec, let's say, for example, is sort of separate enough that it's not interfering with independent thought-through policy?
Absolutely. The DA has no correlation between getting money from somebody and anything else. We make it very clear that when somebody's donating to the DA, what they're donating to is democracy in South Africa, because democracy costs money. And if you don't have many political parties contesting the space, you end up with a one-party state, which we don't want. So we want a robust democracy. And what we find is donors who give money to the DA want democracy in South Africa to work, because we're a relatively young democracy. And if we don't get it right in the early stages, it's never going to work. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that if you look, for example, at our resolutions, we have always made it very clear that we are a party that's for a market economy. And we will always be leaning in that direction. We have a new economic policy that we'll be rolling out after the Congress. It's about the enterprising economy. So we are moving definitely in that direction because we know that we're going to be governing. We may well be governing in 2024. And if so, we need to have a sensible policy suite. On the independence of the Reserve Bank, the ANC have now said that they want to nationalise the bank. The DA's view is that it must not be nationalised. The Reserve Bank must be independent. Because remember, you've got fiscal policy and you have monetary policy. And so the fiscal policy is government needs to make certain interventions in the economy when they need to. So, for example, now that we've got inflation, government is actually driving inflation by having a fuel levy, for example. If they cut the fuel levy, you'd have cheaper petrol, cheaper transport, and then cheaper food.
I'm going to have to stop you there. Of course, monetary policy and the economic outlook of the DA, an important issue. We had another resolution which didn't pass, Xoli, which was around pension funds and the amount or portion of pension funds invested locally rather than further afield. We now also have a quantum on the cost of this conference and the assumption that the DA will be in government as of 2024. We're hearing the announcement of the leader could be well earlier than 2 o'clock, which was when we were initially expecting that declaration on the new leader of the official opposition. And with that, it's back to you in studio.